I worked as an usher at a movie theater for about 2 years during college, mostly evening shifts, weekends, the usual. The job was simple: tier tickets, direct people to their screens, occasionally kick out teenagers trying to sneak into R-rated films. But closing shifts were different, especially the midnight showings. This happened about 6 months before I quit. We had a midnight screening of some old horror movie. I think it was The Thing. The theater only sold about 12 tickets, which was normal for a weeknight midnight show. I was assigned to Screen 7, the smallest theater in the building. My job was to stand by the door during the movie in case anyone needed anything, then do a walkthrough after it ended to make sure nobody was left inside. The movie started at 12:05 a.m. I stood outside the doors for the first 20 minutes, then did my usual check-in around 12:30, counted the people in their seats. 12, just like the ticket count. Everyone seemed fine. I went back outside and leaned against the wall, scrolling through my phone. Around 1:15, I heard the door creak open behind me. A man stepped out, middle-aged, wearing a grey suit that looked expensive. He smiled at me. "Great movie," he said. "Haven't seen it in years." "Glad you enjoyed it," I said automatically. He walked past me toward the lobby. I thought nothing of it. People left early sometimes. But then I remembered something. I'd counted 12 people when I checked at 12:30. The movie wasn't over yet. If this guy left, there should be 11 people inside now. I pushed open the door and did a quick count. Still 12 people in their seats. I stood there for a moment, confused. Maybe I'd miscounted the first time. It was dark, easy to make mistakes. I went back outside and finished scrolling through my phone. At 1:45, the movie ended. I heard people getting up, gathering their things, the usual shuffle of a crowd leaving. I stepped inside to do my final walkthrough. The theater was completely empty. I walked down each aisle, checking every row. Not a single person. Not even trash left behind. No popcorn, no cups, nothing. I pulled out my phone and checked the time. 1:47 a.m. The movie had definitely ended. I'd heard people leaving, but nobody had walked past me in the hallway. I went back outside and looked down the corridor. There was only one exit from Screen 7, the doors I'd been standing next to the entire time. If 12 people had left, they would have had to walk right past me. Nobody had. I radioed my manager, told him what happened. He came down annoyed, probably thinking I'd fallen asleep or something. We checked the theater together. Empty. We checked the bathrooms nearby. Empty. We checked the emergency exit. It was alarmed and hadn't been opened. My manager pulled up the ticket sales on his phone. 12 tickets sold, he said. Right. And you were standing out here the whole time? Yeah. He looked at me for a long moment. You probably just missed them, he said finally. Weren't paying attention. But I was paying attention. I'd been standing right there. I would have seen 12 people walk past me. The next morning, I mentioned it to the day manager. She gave me a strange look. Screen 7, she asked. Yeah. What time did the movie end? Around 1:45. She didn't say anything for a minute. Then she pulled out a log book from behind the counter, flipped through a few pages and showed me an entry from 3 years ago. It was an incident report. Midnight showing in Screen 7. 15 people bought tickets. 15 people checked in. When the usher did the final walkthrough, the theater was empty. No trash, no people, nothing. The emergency exit hadn't been opened. Nobody had walked past the usher. 15 people had simply vanished. The day manager closed the logbook. It happened again last year, she said. 9 people that time, always Screen 7, always midnight showings. I asked her what she thought was happening. She shrugged. Corporate says it's just ushers not paying attention. What do you think? She looked at me. I think something's wrong with screen 7. Like what? I don't know. But it's been happening for years. I asked if anyone had ever tried to investigate. Once, she said. Manager set up a camera inside screen 7 during a midnight showing, recorded the whole thing. What did it show? She paused. 12 people sitting in their seats. Movie ends, credits roll, lights come up. Another pause, and all 12 people are still sitting there, not moving, not blinking, just staring at the screen. For how long? 20 minutes. Then the camera cuts to static. I quit 2 weeks later. But before I did, I checked the schedule one more time. Screen 7 had another midnight showing coming up, an old movie. Already sold 14 tickets. I wasn't going to be there to count how many people left. I was a projectionist for 8 years at an old independent theater downtown. Not the digital stuff you see now. This was back when we ran actual film reels. It was a dying art even then, but our theater specialized in classic movies and foreign films, so we kept the old equipment running. The projection booth was on the 3rd floor, accessed by a narrow staircase that most customers didn't even know existed. It was my domain, dark, cramped, and filled with the constant whir of film running through sprockets. This happened during a Tuesday night showing of Nosferatu, the silent version from 1922. We showed it once a month with live organ accompaniment. It was popular with film students and older folks who remembered seeing it decades ago. I threaded the film at 7:45 p.m. The showing was scheduled for 8 hours. About 30 people in the audience. Decent for a Tuesday. The organ started playing. I started the projector. Nosferatu's creepy opening credits filled the screen below. Everything was normal for the first 20 minutes. I was monitoring the feed, making sure the focus stayed sharp. Then I noticed something in the image. There was a figure standing in the back of the shot, just standing there, perfectly still, watching the main characters. I leaned closer to the screen. The figure wasn't supposed to be there. I'd seen Nosferatu probably 50 times. I knew every scene. This was wrong. But the audience didn't seem to notice. The organ kept playing. The film kept running. The figure appeared in the next scene too. And the next, always in the background, always watching. I stopped the projector. The audience below groaned. You could hear them through the floor. I ignored them and examined the film reel itself. The figure was there, printed directly onto the film, but that was impossible. We'd verified this print's authenticity when we bought it. The figure hadn't been there during previous showings. I threaded the film again and restarted the projector. Maybe I'd imagined it. The figure was still there. Closer now. You could see more details. A long coat, a hat pulled low, face hidden in shadow. By the 30-minute mark, the figure was in almost every frame, moving closer to the camera with each scene. I grabbed my phone and called the owner. No answer. I called the manager. No answer. The organ music stopped suddenly. I looked down at the orchestra pit through the booth window. The organist was gone. Her bench was empty. The audience was still watching the movie, completely oblivious. On screen, the figure was now in the foreground, taking up half the frame. The original actors were barely visible behind it. I reached for the projector to shut it off. The figure on screen turned its head, looked directly at the camera, directly at me. I shut off the projector. The screen went black. The audience erupted in confused murmurs. I turned on the house lights and looked down at the theater. Every seat was empty. The organist was gone. The 30 people who'd bought tickets were gone. I'd been alone in the building the entire time. I ran downstairs, checked the lobby, the bathrooms, the exits. Nobody. The front doors were locked from the inside. The emergency exits hadn't been opened. I went back to the projection booth. The film was still threaded in the projector, stopped on a single frame. It showed the figure standing in what looked like a projection booth. My projection booth. Behind the figure, barely visible in the shadows, I could see someone slumped over a projector, wearing my clothes. I left the theater that night and never went back. The owner tried calling me for a week. I never answered. A month later, I drove past the theater. There was a "for sale" sign in the window. I looked it up online. The place had closed suddenly. No explanation given. I found one article buried in the local paper. It mentioned that the final film shown had been Nosferatu. The projectionist had been found dead in the booth, slumped over the projector. Heart attack, they said. But the article also mentioned something strange. When they found him, the projector was still running, playing the same frame over and over, a frame that showed a figure standing in a projection booth, watching something we couldn't see. I worked at a small-town movie theater during my senior year of high school. It was one of those old single-screen places that showed movies about 3 weeks after they came out everywhere else. Cheap tickets, terrible popcorn, but it was the only entertainment in town. I was working the concession stand one Saturday night when a woman bought a ticket for the 9 p.m. showing. She was probably in her 50s, wore a long winter coat, even though it was July. "Enjoy the movie," I said, handing her the ticket. She smiled but didn't say anything, just walked through the doors into the theater. The thing was, nobody else had bought tickets for that showing. She was the only one. My manager, Kyle, came out of the office around 8:55. "We doing the showing?" he asked. "One person bought a ticket." He shrugged. "Waste of electricity, but whatever." He started the movie at 9:01 p.m. sharp. I stayed at the concession stand, cleaning up, restocking candy. The theater was dead. No other customers came in. Around 10:00, Kyle came back out. "Do a bathroom check," he said, "and peek into the theater. Make sure our solo viewer is doing okay." I grabbed the cleaning supplies and headed to the bathrooms first. They were fine. Then I pushed open the theater doors as quietly as I could and looked inside. The movie was playing, some action thing with explosions and car chases, but the theater was completely empty. I walked down the aisle, checking every row. The woman wasn't there. I went back to Kyle. "She's not in there." "What do you mean?" "The theater's empty. She must have left." Kyle frowned. "When?" "You've been at the concession stand the whole time." He was right. There was only one exit from the theater, and it led right past my station. I would have seen her leave. "Check the bathrooms again," Kyle said. I did. They were empty. We searched the whole building, storage rooms, office, even the projection booth. She wasn't anywhere. "Maybe she snuck out the emergency exit," Kyle suggested. We checked. It was locked from the inside and had a push-bar alarm. If she'd used it, we would have heard. Kyle pulled out his phone and checked the security camera footage from the lobby. We watched the timestamp from when she'd entered. 8:58 p.m. The woman walks through the lobby doors. 8:59 p.m. She buys her ticket from me. 9:10 p.m. She walks into the theater. Then nothing. No footage of her coming back out. "Rewind to before she came in," I said. Kyle scrubbed backward through the footage. 8:01 p.m., 7:00 p.m., 6:00 p.m. At 6:47 p.m., the same woman entered the lobby. She bought a ticket. She walked into the theatre. "Wait," I said. "She came to the 7 p.m. showing too?" Kyle kept rewinding. 5 p.m., 4 p.m., 3 p.m. The same woman appeared again at 4:52 p.m. Same coat, same expression. Bought a ticket. Walked into the theatre. Kyle looked at me. "How long has she been doing this?" We rewound all the way back to when the theatre opened at noon. The first showing started at 12:30 p.m. At 12:28 p.m. the woman entered, bought a ticket, walked into the theatre. She'd been there for every single showing, 4 showings in a row, and she'd never left. "Pull up the theatre camera," I said. We switched to the camera that pointed at the screen. It was low quality, mostly used to make sure people weren't recording the movie. The current showing, empty theatre. Kyle rewound to the 7 p.m. showing. Empty. 4 p.m. showing. Empty. 12:30 p.m. showing. There she was, sitting in the back row center seat, watching the screen. We watched the entire movie in fast forward. She never moved, never got up, just sat there. When the credits rolled and the lights came up, she stood up and walked down the aisle, straight toward the screen. She didn't stop at the front row. She kept walking, right up to the screen itself, and then she stepped through it, like the screen was a doorway. Kyle and I stared at the monitor. "Play the 4 showing," I whispered. Same thing. She sat through the entire movie, walked to the screen, stepped through. 7 p.m. showing, same. 9 p.m. showing, we fast-forwarded to the end. The movie was still playing, but we waited. When the credits rolled, the woman stood up from the back row, same seat she'd been sitting in during every showing. She walked down the aisle, walked to the screen, and stepped through. Kyle shut off the monitor. "We're closing early." "What about—" "I don't care, we're closing." We locked up the theatre and went home. I didn't sleep that night. The next morning I called Kyle to ask if I should come in for my shift. "Theatre's closed," he said. "Owner sold the building. Says we're done." "What? Why?" He wouldn't say. Just told me to clean out my office and leave the keys. I drove past the theatre a week later. There was a demolition notice on the door. They tore it down a month after that. I don't know who that woman was. I don't know where she went when she walked through the screen. But sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd followed her. I worked at a movie theatre in college. Box office mostly, sometimes concessions. It was a standard multiplex, 12 screens, sticky floors, overpriced candy. We had regulars, people who came in every week, sometimes multiple times a week. There was the old guy who only watched westerns, the teenage couple who made out through every movie, the woman who brought her own food in a giant purse, and then there was the man in screen 4. I first noticed him about 3 months into my job. He came in every Friday night at 6:45 p.m., always bought a ticket for whatever was playing in screen 4 at 7 p.m., always paid cash, never bought concessions. "1 for screen 4, he'd say. Same words every time, monotone, like he was reading from a script. He was probably in his 40s, thin, grey suit, face so ordinary I could never quite remember what he looked like after he walked away. After a few weeks I started recognizing him, started having his ticket ready before he even reached the counter. 1 for screen 4, he'd say. "Already got it," I'd reply, sliding the ticket across. He never thanked me, just took the ticket and walked into the theatre. One Friday, I mentioned him to my co-worker, Sarah. "You know that guy who comes every Friday? Always screen 4? She looked at me blankly. "What guy?" "Thin guy, grey suit, comes at 6:45 every week." "I've never seen him." That was weird. Sarah worked the same shifts I did. She should have noticed, but I let it go. Maybe she just didn't pay attention. The next Friday, I decided to check on him during the movie. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Something about him bothered me. I waited until about 7:30, then slipped into screen 4 from the back entrance. The movie was playing. It was some superhero thing, I forget which one. The theater was about half full. I scanned the back rows first. Nothing unusual. Then the middle section. I walked down the side aisle slowly, checking each row carefully. That's when I realized something. I couldn't find him. I walked all the way to the front, then back up the other side. He wasn't there. I went back to the box office, pulled up the ticket sales for screen 4. 37 tickets sold. I counted the people in the theater. 36. One person was missing. I checked screen 4 every Friday after that. Same thing every time. The man would buy a ticket, walk into the theater, but when I counted the audience, he was never there. I asked Sarah to watch for him one Friday, told her what he looked like, what time he came in. "I'll keep an eye out," she promised. At 6:45, I was restocking candy in the concession area. I had my back to the box office. I heard his voice. "One for screen 4. I spun around. The man was at the counter, but Sarah was just standing there, staring straight ahead, not acknowledging him at all. "Sarah, he's right there." She blinked. "What?" The man was gone. The box office was empty, but there was a ticket sitting on the counter. Screen 4, 7:00 p.m. showing. Sarah picked it up, confused. "Where did this come from?" "You just sold it. To that guy. I heard him." "Nobody's been here for 5 minutes. I checked the computer. One ticket sold for screen 4 at 6:44 p.m. But there was no payment recorded. No cash in the drawer. No credit card transaction. The ticket just appeared. I started dreading Fridays. At 6:45, I'd feel cold. The lights in the lobby would seem dimmer, and that voice would come from somewhere behind me. "One for screen 4. I'd turn around and sometimes he'd be there, sometimes he wouldn't, but the ticket always appeared. One Friday, I decided I was done. I was going to follow him, see where he actually went. At 6:44, I watched the box office camera feed on my phone. At 6:45 exactly, the ticket appeared on the counter. No person visible on camera. Just the ticket, materializing from nothing. I grabbed the ticket and ran to screen 4. The doors were closed. The movie had already started. I pushed through the doors. The theater was completely dark. Not just dim, dark. The screen was blank. No movie playing. No light at all. But I could see him. The man in the grey suit. He was sitting in the center seat, 4th row back. Same seat every time. He wasn't watching the screen. He was looking at me. "You shouldn't be here," he said. His voice echoed, even though the room was carpeted. "Who are you?" I asked. "I've been coming here for 17 years, he said. "Every Friday, same time, same screen, same seat." "Why?" "Because I died here." I felt the temperature drop. My breath came out in vapor. 17 years ago, screen 4 was screen 8. Different layout, different seats. I came to see a movie. Had a heart attack in the 4th row. Nobody noticed until the credits rolled. He stood up, started walking toward me. I've been trying to finish that movie ever since, but I can never see the ending. The film always stops. The screen always goes dark. He was right in front of me now, close enough to touch. "Maybe you can help me," he said. "Stay and watch with me. Maybe if someone else is here, the movie will keep playing." I ran, burst through the doors back into the lobby. Sarah was at the concession stand. "You okay?" she asked. "You look like you saw a ghost." I quit the next day. Didn't give notice, didn't finish my shift, just left. But last Friday, even though I haven't worked there in 2 years, I felt that cold feeling at 6:45 p.m. And I heard a voice behind me, even though I was alone in my apartment. "One for screen 4.